I'm Olivia Whillock.
And I'm Jenna Johnson.
And this is our capstone. Coming into the high school, I've always looked forward to doing a capstone. I always wanted to start off strong so I could get more and more and add on to it every single year. So it all started when me and Grace Warwick joined the soccer team. Our first season, Carter and Ruth Ellen Bailey mentioned how they had coached a Emerald Youth soccer team. So that sparked mine and Grace's interest, and we started to talk to Coach Petrick so we could get on board with that. So my freshman year, in this picture, and this picture, we coached 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. They were always smiling, always contagious laughter, and always made our hearts warm. And then in sophomore year, we coached 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, which was just as fun, but they also had more personality too. So that was always exciting. But unfortunately, due to my club soccer schedule, I could no longer do this my junior and senior year, but hopefully I'll be able to return as the year goes on.
So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my capstone, I wanted to combine my love for traveling and my love for kids. And so even at the time, I didn't know that God had placed the perfect opportunity right in front of me, visiting the Philippines, this orphanage called Samaritan's Place. I was dreading going because it was so far, and it'd be the first time that I would travel so far without my mother. And it was just like so out of my comfort zone, such a new and scary experience, but I can honestly say it was the best experience of my life, just because I got to love on the kids there, help and like volunteer, and just do anything that the orphanage needed me to do. So I was just like really disappointed when I found out I couldn't return. And so then I just decided to like start looking at new things that I could invest my time with in Samaritan's Place, but I unfortunately just didn't have enough time or good enough ideas to follow through with that. So then that left me and Olivia sitting in study hall talking about how we had no clue what to do with our capstone. Thankfully, Katie Bauer was there, and she suggested us doing a men's volleyball league. So if it weren't for her, we would be doing 2 completely different capstones. A fear that I had was that it would be too similar to Emily, Carol, and Balin's capstone Powder Puff League. However, this would be for the boys, and they would be able to participate in a sporting event. I expected that we would have just as many, if not more, participants sign up. But I was also scared that people would sign up and not show up on game day, or they would sign up, not pay, and we would be left with no players.
My fears and concerns were super different from Jenna because we both have a really different personality. Jenna likes to have control of everything and know what the future holds, and I tend to be more laid back and go with the flow kind of person. So my fears were that I wouldn't be able to please everyone that was involved. So whenever I talked to the boys, I made sure that they wanted to be on the team that they were on. Like, that would be no problem because I wanted to make sure everyone was happy. I also thought from the very beginning that the boys might not be interested in it and think it was a dumb idea from the very start. But after I announced it in the first chapel, my fear didn't come true. Everyone was all over it and loved the idea. The startup was, we first needed to know when and where we were going to do it. So once we found a date, which was February 19th, which was a Monday, we didn't have school, we knew that more boys would be able to sign up because since we didn't have school, everything would be good to go. And so once we figured out when we were going to do it, we needed to know where we were going to do it. So this involved us contacting Ms. Jelks, the athletic director's assistant, on gym availability. So once we contacted Ms. Jelks, she said she wasn't really sure on when we would be able to get the campus center gym because that's the one me and Jenna wanted the most since it's such a common area for high schoolers to get together. But luckily for us, but unluckily for the basketball team, the boys lost and their season ended sooner than they thought they would. So we got the campus center gym. So once we got the campus center gym, we started to advertise. And by advertising, we made posters the whole Saturday, and we also used our time in chapel and announced it sometimes. We also used social media just a little bit just to get the words out to people that weren't in chapel or haven't seen the posters yet. But after the very first chapel announcement, boys, like I said earlier, just came on, signed up, shockingly, because I thought the underclassmen wouldn't want to come to me and approach me since I'm an upperclassman. But they proved me wrong.
After several rough drafts, we finally made our official teams. It was really difficult for us because we wanted this to be an enjoyable experience for everybody that was involved. So we had to create a good balance between not making the team too stacked, but also allowing the boys to be with their friends. Another aspect of that it was difficult was, boys would drop like flies and say like they'd never signed up, they changed their mind. So we had to rework the team several times, and that was just really frustrating. And then Olivia would send out texts to the assigned coaches and let them know information, updating them. And like an example would be we wanted them to pick a team name and a team theme. And while she was doing that, I would send emails out to the baseball and soccer coaches just to make sure that they didn't have a practice or a game or something important that day, or just in general, just allowing their players to participate in our capstone. Unfortunately, the baseball coach didn't allow his players to participate, so that dropped our numbers a little bit lower than we expected, so that was unfortunate. But we also reached out to helpers, so that included scorekeepers, line judges, and referees. And as you can see, our two referees were Emily Carroll and Balin Pierce. Not only did they referee for us, they also set up the nets. They also taught us all the rules to volleyball and then told all the teams the rules so that we wouldn't have to do that.
So game day comes along, and it's time for me and Jenna to set up. Me and Jenna both arrive at the school at around 11 o'clock so we can ease into the day and not be stressed about how much time we were going to have to set everything up, and we didn't want to run out of time. But before we did that, Jenna went to Krispy Kreme Donuts and got 2 dozen donuts for the champions. After that, we go into the gym and we try to find all the supplies that coaches were going to let us use, which included the speaker and the volleyballs. So Coach Mazzingo left out the speaker he uses for football practices for us to listen to music while the boys played and while we set up. So we also made a special playlist for the volleyball tournament, so that was fun to make, and all the boys enjoyed the music that played then. But earlier in the week, we had to contact Coach Pittman and seeing if she would let us even use the volleyballs in the volleyball poles, which holds the nets. And she was all for it, so we found the volleyballs easy, but we also knew where the nets were, but there's no way me and Jenna could assemble those on our own, so we waited for the volleyball girls that generously offered their time to help us set up and coach. So the volleyball girls set up those, and that's Balin and Katie setting up the nets there. And then after that, we wanted to find the scorekeeping flip chart, but unfortunately we could not find that. But Mr. King, our mentor, had an idea of using one of the whiteboards he saw in the locker room earlier. So we get the whiteboard and we would just keep tally of the score on it. Last thing that we needed to do before our setup was complete was find two tables. And me and Jenna couldn't find any in the campus center, so we went to the high school and got 2 tables that we usually set up out front. So we got the 2 tables, and what we used the tables for was here, this is where the scoreboard would be after we had the whiteboard where the helpers are right there. And then we also brought waters for the players to drink as they played throughout the day. And in this picture are the helpers that helped us set up, and Mr. King and Hannah Lloyd, which is the assistant coach for the women's volleyball team at CAK.
Okay, so game time finally hit, 1:30. Everyone started coming in. They showed up with their team name and their team theme, just like we asked. There were 6 official teams, single elimination. Like I said before, the rest would tell each team before each game all the rules, what they could and could not do. And it was best 2 out of 3, first to 15 would be the winner. Oh, and that is Lizzie Brandon and Riley Jost, our 2 scorekeepers that volunteered. And this is our freshman team that unfortunately lost first round, but they were really good sports and stuck out through the whole tournament.
The championship game was also the best 2 out of 3, but instead of 15, they played to 25. This caused the games to last longer and be more intense. But unluckily for the juniors team, but luckily for us seniors, the senior teams pulled out a win on the first 2 games. The senior team Milk and the junior team Hawaiians are the 2 that competed in the championship game. And there's them with their prize of the 2 dozen donuts, and here's the final bracket. The unexpected always kept us on our toes throughout the day. The first thing that went wrong, or not wrong, but caused a bump in the road, was when we first got there, the volleyball players realized that the poles were not going into the holes to set up the nets. So they've experienced this before, and what usually happens is that after basketball season, the floor gets sealed over, so it causes gunk and dirt to get sealed into the holes. So how we resolved this problem was getting our car keys and digging it out until we could finally fit the poles into the holes. Also, another problem that we resulted with the nets and the poles is that during the first game of the sophomores playing and one of the senior teams playing, one of the poles become loose, which is a huge safety issue. But luckily, Hannah Lloyd caught that, and we had to stop the game, fix the hole, and assemble it back together so they can continue playing safely. After that game, sadly, me and Jenna both can agree that we both thought that the sophomore team was going to win, since it seemed that they had a lot of strength and a lot of height, which was very versatile for them. And so me and Jenna were surprised because we thought they would go a long way in the tournament, but sadly they lost to the senior team Milk. But the weirdest thing that happened throughout the whole day was that Sarah Keller, on her way to the games to watch, she found 2 lost dogs, and she was like, I don't know what to do with these. I need to bring them with me. So she puts them in her car and drives back to CAK with the 2 lost dogs and brings them into the gym. Me and Jenna were super confused about what was going on. We're like, Sarah, why did you bring your dogs? But she's like, I couldn't leave them, so I brought them with me. So I guess you could say they served as a mascot throughout the day.
So like I listed before, some of my fears, well, one of them came true. Several of the boys didn't show up, and the team that suffered the most from that was the junior boys Bob New Badgers. 2 of their teammates bailed, and so that left them with 4 players, which you can't play with 4 players in this tournament. So thankfully Christian Copeland was there to save the day and allowed them to play. But that still messed up our bracket. So we had 6 teams, and after the 6 teams play, we'd have 3 teams left over. So obviously somebody would need to have a bye. And the only fair way we could do that was to put 3 names in a hat and then just pick it randomly. And the Hawaiians somehow got that.
And then here's a short clip of the highlights that happened during the tournament. Okay, so for the outcome, my expectations were super exceeded because going into it, I thought this was just going to be maybe a fun experience just for the boys that signed up to play, but it also was a really fun experience for me and Jenna and all the coaches involved. I also thought that it would bring great unity between the boys and the girls in the high school, which also definitely happened through this process, which was super exciting. But what I learned the most was I needed to be more of a proactive person than a reactive person. And Jenna definitely helped me with that because, as I said earlier, I'm super laid back and I kind of just, whatever happens, happens, and I'll adjust to it. But with Jenna's help, she's made me more like we need to have a plan B for everything instead of just reacting on what would go wrong. So that was super helpful for me. But after graduation, I plan on attending the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. I'm not sure what I'm going to major in, but this has definitely sparked an interest in sports management for me. So hopefully I can look into that and see what the future holds.
Something that impacted me was this process was very stressful for me just because, like Olivia said, I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I learned patience from Olivia. Like I had to be okay with the unexpected, not knowing what was going to happen, and just like hope for a good outcome. So I think that's why we worked really well together. We got the job done, but we could still have fun together in doing it. So after high school, I'm planning on attending the University of Tennessee to not be an event planner that I learned, but to hopefully become a nurse or a doctor, which I'm really passionate about, helping people and impacting them, which is why I was so passionate about Samaritan's Place. Also, all the money that we collected from the players, which was $10, we will donate to an MS organization in honor of Ms. Snyder.
And that idea was Mr. King's, who was also our mentor. We thought Mr. King would be a great fit to be our mentor because not only is he have a former or a past with working with volleyball, but also he's so close to his students that he teaches. So we all thought that Mr. King would be a great outlet to get the word out to his students, but also to make sure everyone's excited about it and help us with his great ideas. So that's our capstone.